Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining me again for another adventure with Little Willis and his mice friends. If you're joining me, it might be nap time or time to snuggle under the covers, tuck in with your favorite stuffy, and close your eyes to say goodnight to another day. This story is called Mr. Little. It was autumn again, and the ground was covered with gold, orange, and red leaves, the best kind in which to play. Mrs. Nibble was inside making her first pot of hot chocolate for the season. When it was ready, she called in all the family to gather around the fireplace. Tonight, Grandpa Nibbles was going to tell the story of how their little town of Littleville got its name. It all started 102 mouse years ago. It was an adventure of a mouse named Nathan. He was a city mouse who dreamt of a quiet life in the country. And as soon as Nathan graduated mouse school, he set out. He said goodbye to his family and his friends and told them he was going to go in search of a quiet town in the country. One morning, after he had been traveling for many days, he stopped at a small park to have lunch and take a short nap. He dreamt of finding his way out of the city. He dreamt of sunny days with fluffy, thick white clouds in the sky. Good afternoon. Nathan quickly opened his eyes to find there were no fluffy clouds around, only a very large, fluffy cat whom he had seemed to snuggle up to without knowing. So, what is your name? Asked the cat. Nathan, he answered nervously. What is yours? I'm Mr. Little. Oh, it was clear this was a friendly cat, which made Nathan very happy, although this cat was not very little. They spent the afternoon trading stories about adventures they hoped to have, and found that the two of them had a lot in common. Mr. Little told Nathan he was leaving the city to travel around the world, and his first adventure was going to be traveling through the mountains of Canada. This sounded perfect to Nathan, and the new friends decided they would travel together from then on. Nathan would scurry up the rooftops to see where they needed to go, and Mr. Little would carry them quickly to their next stop. Together, they were able to leave the city behind in no time at all. Nathan could finally see the mountains ahead of him. The countryside was just as beautiful as they had both imagined. The odd couple played and enjoyed the flowers and the fresh air. Nathan climbed high in the trees, and he would spot the fish in the ponds. And Mr. Little would jump in and catch dinner. They were having a wonderful time on their adventure and becoming the best of friends. Summer seemed as if it was coming to an end. It was starting to get chilly in the evenings. The sun was setting earlier. They searched and searched, but found no mouse town anywhere. One night they found a big red barn where they made a soft bed of hay and drifted off to sleep, much like you should be doing now. This time, it was Mr. Little who woke up with a surprise. Angry mice had surrounded him while he slept. Nathan woke up and quickly jumped to his friend's defense. He told them Mr. Little was a friendly cat and they had nothing to worry about. But the mice just scoffed at him. "That's the silliest thing I've ever heard," said one mouse. "He's the biggest cat I've ever seen. He'll eat us all," said another. "Leave this barn right now and don't come back," they shouted. As hard as they tried, the two friends could not get the angry mice to listen. Nathan and Mr. Little had to leave. It was a sad night for the pair. Nathan was thinking of heading back to the city. "I guess my dream of a quiet country town is just that, a dream." He sounded very defeated. Mr. Little felt so bad to see his friend sad. What if you were to build the first mouse town? Nathan smiled at the thought. He knew his friend was only trying to help, but a mouse town with one mouse would not be a town at all. The next morning, Mr. Little convinced Nathan that he should build a cottage of his own, so at least they would have a place in the country they could always meet. Nathan liked the idea. He would build a cottage with enough room for them both. Mr. Little said he had something important to do, and he would be back as soon as possible. Nathan got straight to work on his cottage. Building in the country was not as easy as a city. In the city, all a mouse really had to do was find a hole in the wall and decorate. Now, he would need to gather twigs and leaves, and maybe, if he was lucky, he would even find a few It seemed quite a long time since Mr. Little had left, and Nathan began to worry he might be lost. It was very quiet without his friend, except for a few geese flying south and the odd rabbit hopping by. He felt quite alone. However, the quiet was soon disrupted by a familiar voice calling his name. However, this voice did not sound like Mr. Little. It sounded like his good friend, William. In fact, it was William. And his friends, Patty, Presley, and Bryn were with him. Nathan was so surprised to see his friends so far from home, but he could have not been happier to see them. "However did you manage to get here?" he asked. "How could you know where I am?" It was Mr. Little. He had gone back to the city to find the rest of Nathan's family and friends. Mr. Little told everyone about how beautiful the countryside was, and that he was willing to take everyone there if they would help build a mouse town. William, Patty, Presley, and Bryn were the first to come. Mr. Little dropped them off by the river and went back to the city for the other mice. Nathan and his friends worked all night and day building the new town, and Mr. Little kept bringing more mice. There were many mice volunteers. One volunteered to make the town's store. He loved gathering bits of material to trade with his friends, so this would be a perfect job for him. Patty loved to teach, so she started on a mouse school. And William, well, he just loved to build, so he helped everyone. The leaves on the tree, so colorful, but they were falling to the ground, and it was getting very cold at night. Mr. Little had just one trip to make to the city. Then he would be done. The town hall was almost finished. It was to be home for Mr. Little while he was there. It was evening when Mr. Little came back to the city for the last time. All the mice were in their new town. Nathan was happier than he could ever remember. They had finished just in time for the first snowfall, which was always a good reason for hot chocolate. It was also time to celebrate, and all the mice were gathered in the new town hall. Nathan had been voted the mayor, and he was about to make his first announcement. At the ceremony the next morning, he would announce the new town name. Everyone was so excited and wondered what the new name would be. Just then, a loud crack interrupted the celebration. Snowflakes started drifting in through the roof. was not holding under the weight of the snow. Everyone got out safely, but Mr. Little had no place to stay now. It was a very cold night, and Mr. Little's paws could freeze if he had no shelter. Just then, Nathan remembered the big red barn just up the river. But Mr. Little's welcome had been unfriendly last time he was there. This might be his only choice, though. He would have to go it alone. Nathan said, "We are friends, and I cannot let you go alone." And so the two started out on their trek towards the big red barn. When they arrived at the barn, they found once again they were not very welcome. "He is big and he will eat us. Go away, silly cat." Mr. Little's feelings were hurt and he wanted to go. He was about to leave, and then something wonderful happened. "He's staying. He's one of us," a town mouse shouted. The town mice had got together and followed their tracks in the snow. They wanted to show their appreciation to their friend, Mr. Little. The town mice did not think of Mr. Little as different. They only knew him as the kind friend he had been to them all. "Do not judge him by the way he looks. He will not eat you," Nathan told the mice in the barn. He shared with them how Mr. Little had helped him and his friends, and that there would not even be a mouse town if it were not for Mr. Little. The mice in the barn were very surprised. They had no idea a cat could be so friendly. They were sorry for being unkind and invited everyone to stay that night, and they even gave Mr. Little the fluffiest hay in the barn. The next morning, Nathan invited the barn mice to come see the new town. Everyone gathered in town square, where Nathan thanked them for all the hard work they had contributed. Now they all could live in a quiet town in the country, just as Nathan had dreamed. Of course, none of it would have been possible without the help of a special friend. Nathan announced they would call their town Littleville in honor of their friend, Mr. Little. He was very flattered, and he felt very important. The barn mice volunteered to help rebuild the town hall roof. They had seen many country snowfalls and were very good builders. Nathan and Mr. Little enjoyed the rest of that winter together, playing in the snow, skating on the river, and drinking lots of hot chocolate. Spring came quickly, and it was time for Mr. Little to continue his adventures. The there was much of the world left he wished to explore, but he promised to come back every year and play with his friends. The farmers at the big red barn, however, did always wonder about the very big fluffy cat that stayed every winter in the big red barn and never caught a mouse. I hope, my friends, that you have enjoyed your story and that you are drifting off into a dreamland of your own. Think happy thoughts. Wake up fresh. It's a new day tomorrow. Little Willis and I say goodnight. We hope you will join us on another adventure soon. Sweet dreams.